Arrow is a story about a superhero that is real. It's about a guy that he doesn't have superpowers, he has learned abilities. And they've been forged over 5 very hard years on an island in the South China Sea. We're trying to make it as real and as grounded as possible while still making it entertaining. I am far from perfect. I think that you could actually go so far as to say that my character is damaged. Oliver Queen is a work in progress. He knows who he is on the island. He's had 5 years there to forge an identity, and he doesn't have to hide that identity from anybody. In Starling City, he's incredibly comfortable being Arrow. He's not comfortable being Oliver Queen, especially around the people in his life that have come to expect Oliver Queen to be something very different than what he is now. So he struggles with that identity.
Laurel is a strong, confident, driven, extremely driven woman. She is a pro bono lawyer. I think she is full of heart. She is always trying to find the good in everyone. It's very grounded and very real, and I feel like a lot of people will be able to relate in some way, in some capacity at least. Oliver Queen disappears, and so does my sister. And it starts off basically where all of a sudden, he's been gone for 5 years, everybody thinks he's dead. We've all sort of tried to move on with our lives, and he just shows up back in town. And he also shows up having gone through a lot and maybe learned a lot while he was gone on this island.
Oliver Queen, who's been stuck on an island for the past 5 years, comes back and is reunited with his friends and his family. I am Oliver's best friend from childhood, and I certainly am hoping that the party's going to start back up again now that he's back. I've been missing my buddy for 5 years. I think the cool part about the action in the show is that it's very real. And it's very fast and straightforward and really, really intense.
Moira Queen is the mother of Oliver and Thea Queen. She's the widow of Robert Queen. She's the new wife of Walter Steele. She's a very, I think she's a woman who has tremendous education, lives in a privileged, moneyed world, and has a lot of quiet power within her. She's a quietly powerful woman, and I think that as we go, we're going to find out that there's more to Moira than meets the eye. What happened to him on that island? What did he learn? This is a man that didn't have his powers given to him. He educated himself in these powers, and a lot of that came on that island.
Oliver's came back and he's got all of these things on his shoulder and he's got a plan set in mind, but also it's like his puzzle fell apart and he's trying to put together these pieces again. It's a broken home, in a sense, that's trying to mend itself back together. In all honesty, she kind of rebelled a little bit during his mishap and when he disappeared. But when she sees that he's coming back, I think she's trying to hone into him again and hold on to him and just, I don't know, she's just trying to keep herself together.
John Diggle was hired by the family, the Queen family, to keep tabs on Oliver Queen, who's just returned from death, as it were. And he works as his bodyguard and driver. You know, when Oliver comes back, there's some nefarious characters out there who think they might be able to capitalize on taking advantage of Oliver and capitalize in a monetary sense, getting money from the family. So I get hired to protect him, and I'm hired by Maura Queen. But she has her own agenda, and ultimately we have to see whether or not Diggle works for Mrs. Queen or works for the Arrow. Part of the story is flashbacks to the island and what he learned, who he became on the island. This playboy, irreverent playboy who really didn't care in terms of the worldview when he left civilization, comes back a hero, a guy who works for the little guy, a guy who's now a physical specimen and a martial artist and a master of the bow and arrow. What did he learn? That's the story.
I think Walter is not letting go of that company and allowing it to become anything other than what it should be. I think that's really important. This is somebody with skills. This is somebody who has learnt how to survive and bringing those skills back into an urban environment to use them. The qualities that will appeal to a worldwide audience are his intelligence, his discipline, his humanity, his humility, and his focus.
Our guy is almost like a POW, really, you know, back from some kind of war that we don't know what it was, and we don't know what he's been through, but he's a real hero, you know, and his gifts and his talents and his skills, and you know, and what he went through, I think are relatable in a different way. We're also going to be telling little mini stories of what happened to him on the island. First, in the pilot, all we see is how he got to the island. And there's every scar on his body, when you see it, is a different story of something that happened to him there.
The basic premise of Arrow is about a show about a guy named Oliver Queen, who grew up as a trust fund bad boy and then is marooned on a deserted island for 5 years. And when he returns home after that 5-year exile, he's a completely different person. He's a killing machine, he's a vigilante, and he ultimately becomes a hero. We really want to sort of always start from the standpoint of, if this were happening in the real world, how would people react? We live in sort of these sort of dark and difficult times, and I think everyone is sort of looking for a hero, and the idea that there's someone out there who's fighting for us, who's looking after our interests, is appealing to everyone.
Even though this started from comic book origins, you know, it's a very real story. When viewers see the pilot, they're going to see that, you know, it's more than just an action-adventure show. They'll see that there's, you know, a great deal of humor, a great deal of drama, and, you know, some soapy elements to them. And I think, you know, what's fun about this project is all the twists and turns that we're able to provide in the pilot. We're just going to keep doing that throughout the series. So, you know, just when you think you know somebody, we're going to pull the rug out from underneath you. What's even more exciting about the action is it's very violent, it's very visceral, it's very real. You know, we took our cues from the Jason Bourne movies as far as the fighting styles and the editing, so that it has this very frenetic, real, grab anything that's around and use it to kill you kind of thing. It's not a sort of, it's not sort of a dance. It's a car wreck.
Well, I think what's interesting about the Arrow that we're creating is we're reimagining the origins of the Arrow. This is a character that's been damaged, and I think it's something that he's going to be dealing with in the series that'll help make it much more than just the good guy and the superhero. This is a show about a man that's dealing with his own history and his own past. Anyone can understand from any language or any situation or any land they're from the difference between right and wrong, and a hero that's really there to help save the day. And I think we're doing this in a way that's grounded, that's accessible, that's realistic and believable. And I think that the performances and the actors that we have in this cast is just tremendous. We wanted to kind of reinvent the Arrow, not unlike the way Chris Nolan did it in Batman Begins, which I thought was a wonderful reinvention of Batman. I think that with the Arrow, we're taking a very similar approach to make this a character that's in the real world. He is heroic and not super heroic. We want to make him a real person because the audience needs to really feel, in a sense, more intimate with him. They have to feel that he's realistic and accessible. So that's a very important part of the show. And I think that that's kind of the setting we really want to play in this world. But it's a world with very dark villains and a dark sensibility and so forth, but also too there's glitz, there's wealth, there's glamour, and I think there's a great balance of both here that we'll be able to explore very excitingly.